Hello, dear friends. My name is Mr. Jones, and I am 65 years old. I've spent most of my life teaching English, and today, I want to share with you some of the easiest and quickest ways to learn this beautiful language. But before we start, there's something I must tell you. It's a story that surprised me, touched my heart, and reminded me why I love teaching. This story begins on my birthday. Yes, my birthday, a day I thought would be like any other. But that morning, as I sipped my coffee and looked out the window, something special happened. I received a letter. Not an ordinary letter, mind you. No, this letter was from someone I hadn't heard from in years. The mysterious letter. I opened the envelope with a curious smile, thinking it was from an old friend or a family member. But as I began reading, I quickly realized this letter was not what I expected. The letter was from a successful CEO, someone managing a large company in an English-speaking country. I remember feeling confused. Why would a CEO write to me, a simple language teacher? The letter started with words of deep gratitude. It spoke of challenges, fear, and eventually, triumph. And then, suddenly, it hit me. This wasn't just any CEO. This was one of my former students. I paused, my heart beating faster. Memories flooded back, memories of a young, nervous student sitting quietly at the back of my classroom, avoiding eye contact and barely speaking a word. Flashback to the past. I remember it clearly now. Years ago, this student, let's call him Sam, walked into my classroom looking defeated. Sam was terrified of speaking English. He'd stumble over words, his face would turn red, and he'd look down at his feet, hoping no one would notice. It was painful to watch because I could see he was smart, full of ideas and potential. But fear held him back. One day after class, I noticed Sam sitting alone. I walked over to him and asked, "Sam, why are you so afraid of speaking English?" He hesitated, then said softly, "I'm afraid people will laugh at my mistakes." I nodded, understanding his fear. I had seen it many times before. But I knew I had to help him overcome it. The secret technique. I began teaching Sam some simple yet powerful technique. We started with mirror conversations. Every night, I told him, stand in front of a mirror and talk to yourself in English. Pretend you're speaking to a friend, or even to me. It sounded strange, but I assured him it would help. Speaking to his own reflection allowed him to practice without fear of judgment. He could make mistakes, correct himself, and build confidence little by little. Next, I introduced role-playing. I asked Sam to imagine different situations: ordering food at a restaurant, asking for directions, or even having a job interview. We practiced these scenarios in class, and I encouraged him to use them outside, with real people whenever he could. At first, he was reluctant, but over time, he became braver. I could see the fear in his eyes slowly fading. The transformation. The changes didn't happen overnight. But little by little, Sam grew more confident. His voice grew stronger, his sentences became clearer, and he started to smile when he spoke English. He even began helping other students who were struggling. I watched with pride as Sam transformed from a shy, anxious learner into a confident, capable speaker. And then, one day, Sam graduated and left my classroom. I was happy for him, of course, but also a little sad. I had no idea what the future held for him. Back to the letter. Now, here I was, years later, reading this letter from Sam, who had become a CEO. I could hardly believe it. As I read on, I learned that he now managed a large team of English-speaking employees. He wrote about how he'd felt afraid, just as he had in my classroom, but how he'd used the same techniques I'd taught him to succeed in his career. In his letter, Sam thanked me again and again. He wrote, "Mr. Jones, your lessons changed my life. You didn't just teach me English, you taught me how to believe in myself. A message for you." I sat there for a long time, holding that letter. My heart felt full, and I was overwhelmed with gratitude. And now, I want to share this story with you because I believe you, too, can overcome any challenge. Learning English may seem hard, but remember, it's not just about the words and grammar. It's about finding the courage to speak, to try, and to make mistakes along the way. So, my dear students, if Sam could go from a shy, fearful learner to a successful CEO, then you, too, can achieve anything. Let's get started, and let me show you the same techniques that helped Sam find his voice. My secrets to learning English quickly. Why learning English feels difficult. Now that you know a little about me and my journey, let's talk about the journey you're on, the journey to learning English. I know it can feel hard, even impossible at times. Maybe you feel nervous about making mistakes, or maybe you think you'll never remember all those new words and rules. I understand, believe me. I've seen hundreds of students struggle with these same problems. But here's what I've learned: with the right methods, anyone can learn English quickly and easily. So today, I'm going to share my secrets with you. These are the techniques I taught Sam, the same techniques that changed his life. And I believe they can change yours, too. Let's go step by step through the main challenges and how to overcome them with some of my special, miraculous methods. 1. Challenge: fear of speaking. One of the biggest challenges for English learners is the fear of speaking. I know many of you feel this way, scared that people will laugh at your mistakes or that you'll forget the words you need. But remember, Sam once felt the same way. Let me show you the method I taught him. Technique: mirror conversations. Every night, I encouraged Sam to stand in front of a mirror and pretend he was speaking to a friend. You might be wondering, why a mirror? Here's the secret: the mirror helps you face your own reflection, creating a safe space where you can practice without fear. When you speak to your own reflection, you don't feel judged, so you can experiment and make mistakes without worry. Imagine you are introducing yourself, talking about your day, or even practicing ordering coffee at a cafe. Example: Hi, my name is. Today, I went to work and learned something new. I had lunch with a friend. Tomorrow, I plan to. This technique helped Sam gain confidence because he could see himself speaking, improving little by little every day. After a few weeks, he felt more comfortable speaking in front of others. So, if you're nervous about speaking, try this. Look into the mirror, smile, and start talking. You'll be surprised by how much it helps. 2. Challenge: forgetting new words. Another common problem is remembering vocabulary. Many students tell me, "Mr. Jones, I just can't remember all these words." And yes, memorizing vocabulary can be challenging, especially if you're just repeating lists of words. But I have a much better way. Technique: contextual storytelling. Instead of learning words in isolation, learn them in context. This means creating a little story or scene in your mind for each word. For example, if you're learning the word sunny, imagine a sunny day. Picture yourself outside, feeling the warmth, and maybe enjoying an ice cream. Example: let's say you're learning these words: rainy, happy, and restaurant. Create a scene in your mind: it's a rainy day, but I am happy because I am at a restaurant with my friend. This short story helps you remember not only the individual words, but also how to use them together. When you learn vocabulary like this, the words stay in your memory much longer because they are connected to something meaningful. I used this method with Sam, too, and he found that it was like creating a movie in his mind. It made learning fun and memorable. 3. Challenge understanding native speakers. Many students tell me that understanding native speakers is difficult. They speak fast, they use slang, and it all feels confusing. I know it is frustrating, but I have a technique for this, too. Technique: chunk listening. Instead of trying to understand every single word, focus on listening to small chunks or groups of words. I taught Sam to listen for phrases, not individual words. For example, when listening to someone say, "How's it going?" Instead of worrying about each word, just think of it as one phrase that means, "How are you?" Example: I used to play short clips for Sam for movies or TV shows, pausing after every phrase to explain what it meant. Try it yourself. Find a short clip in English, listen to a few seconds, and then repeat what you hear. Don't worry about perfect pronunciation at first, focus on getting the rhythm of the language. With practice, Sam started understanding not just individual words but the overall meaning. He became more comfortable listening to English because he stopped stressing over every little word and learned to listen for meaning instead. 4. Challenge building fluency. Fluency is the ability to speak smoothly without too many pauses or hesitations. Many students feel stuck, like they know the words but can't get them out quickly enough. Here's a secret technique I taught Sam to overcome this. Technique: shadowing. Shadowing is a powerful method where you listen to someone speak in English and then repeat what they say immediately, almost like an echo. This technique helps you get used to the natural speed and flow of English. Example: find a short sentence or two, listen to it, and then try to repeat it as closely as possible. Let's say you hear, "Today is a beautiful day, and I'm excited to go outside." You repeat it right after, trying to match the speed and tone. This method helps Sam speak more naturally and confidently. He practiced shadowing with short sentences every day, and soon, he could speak without overthinking each word. Fluency is all about practice, and shadowing is one of the best ways to practice without feeling pressured. 5. Challenge staying motivated. Learning English can take time, and it's easy to feel discouraged. Maybe you've had days when you wanted to give up. I understand that. I've seen it in many students, including Sam. But I have one last technique for you, a simple yet powerful way to stay motivated. Technique: small wins. I encouraged Sam to celebrate his small wins every day. Learning a language is like building a wall. Every new word, every practice session is another brick. You don't need to reach perfection overnight, you just need to keep adding bricks. Example: at the end of each day, think of one thing you did well in English. Maybe you remembered a new word, or maybe you spoke to someone in English. Even if it was just for a few seconds, it's a win. Write it down and feel proud of yourself. This technique helped Sam stay positive and motivated. He saw his progress, even on days when he struggled. And step by step, brick by brick, he built his fluency. Conclusion: the journey continues. These techniques mirror conversations, contextual storytelling, chunk listening, shadowing, and celebrating small wins are what I call my English learning secrets. They helped Sam go from a nervous beginner to a confident English speaker, and they can help you, too. Remember, learning a language isn't about being perfect. It's about making progress, one step at a time. So keep practicing, keep believing, and most importantly, don't give up. If Sam could do it, so can you. And I'll be here every step of the way, cheering you on. Thank you for letting me be a part of your journey. Now, let's get started with your first step to fluency. Real stories from my students overcoming challenges and finding success. Let me tell you about some of my past students who, just like you, started out feeling nervous, discouraged, and sometimes even hopeless about learning English. They all faced different challenges, but by using some of the same methods I am sharing with you today, each one found a way to succeed. I hope their stories will inspire you and show you that progress is truly possible. Story 1, Sarah breaking free from the fear of speaking. Sarah was one of the shyest students I ever taught. She barely spoke in class and avoided any activity where she might have to talk in English. One day, I asked her to stay after class. And she told me her biggest fear: she was terrified of making mistakes and thought others would laugh at her. To help her, I introduced my mirror conversations technique, where she could practice speaking alone, without anyone watching. I encouraged her to look into her own eyes and pretend she was introducing herself or talking about her day. At first, it felt strange, but over time, she grew more comfortable seeing herself speak. A few weeks later, Sarah raised her hand in class for the first time and spoke a full sentence in English. The smile on her face was unforgettable. Now, Sarah works in customer service, speaking with English-speaking clients every day. She often tells me how that small, simple technique gave her the courage to keep going. Story 2, Reza learning through stories to remember vocabulary. Reza, another one of my students, struggled a lot with vocabulary. He would often say, "Mr. Jones, I can learn words one day, but the next day I forget them all." He was frustrated and felt he'd never have a big enough vocabulary to hold a real conversation. So, I introduced him to the contextual storytelling technique. Instead of memorizing long lists of words, I asked him to create little stories using the new words he learned. One day, we practiced with words like rainy, happy, and restaurant. Reza made up a story about going to a restaurant on a rainy day and feeling happy because he had his favorite meal. Suddenly, the words stuck. After a few months, Reza was creating and telling full stories in English, and he didn't need to keep going back to his notes to remember word. He used this technique throughout his studies and now works as a tour guide, using English every day. Story 3, Fatima gaining confidence to talk to native speakers. Fatima was always worried about understanding native speakers. She told me that every time she tried listening to English speakers, it sounded like they were speaking too fast, and she felt lost. She was scared to even try having a conversation. I suggested that she use the chunk listening method. We started with short clips from TV shows and broke them down, focusing on small groups of words or chunks instead of individual words. Little by little, Fatima learned to listen for meaning, rather than stressing over each word. After a few months, she told me something amazing: she had her first conversation with an English-speaking friend. Fatima said she was still nervous, but because she was listening in chunks, she understood most of the conversation. Today, she's studying abroad and speaks English daily with confidence. She said learning to focus on chunks gave her the power to understand English speakers without feeling overwhelmed. Story 4, Ahmed building fluency with shadowing. Ahmed was a bright student but often hesitated when he spoke. His sentences came out slowly because he was worried about getting each word right. He told me he wanted to speak English like a native but felt stuck. I introduced Ahmed to shadowing, where he would listen to short English sentences and repeat them, matching the speed and intonation of the speaker. At first, it was tough, but Ahmed was determined. He practiced every day, mimicking the rhythm and tone of the sentences. Gradually, his speaking became smoother, and he gained confidence. Ahmed now works at an international company, and his colleagues often compliment him on his fluent English. He once told me, "Mr. Jones, shadowing changed everything. It helped me speak naturally, without overthinking." His success was proof that with the right practice, anyone can sound fluent. Story 5, Layla finding small wins to stay motivated. Layla's biggest challenge was motivation. She was eager to learn but felt discouraged by how slowly she was progressing. She said, "Mr. Jones, I feel like I'll never be able to speak English well enough." To help her stay motivated, I introduced the concept of small wins. I encouraged her to celebrate even her smallest achievements, like remembering a new word or successfully asking for directions in English. I told her to write down these wins in a journal each day. A few months later, Layla showed me her journal, filled with dozens of small wins. She said, "I didn't realize how much I was improving until I saw it all written down." Layla went on to travel to several English-speaking countries and could communicate confidently wherever she went. For her, those small wins kept her moving forward and reminded her that every bit of progress mattered. Conclusion: if they can do it, so can you. Each of these students had their unique challenges, but with the right techniques and a lot of persistence, they found their way. They didn't become fluent overnight, but step by step, they built their skills and gained confidence. Just like Sarah, Reza, Fatima, Ahmed, and Layla, you can overcome your fears and succeed in learning English. Remember, progress is a journey. And every small step brings you closer to fluency. So, take these stories as a reminder that you're not alone. You have your own path to follow, and if you keep practicing and believing in yourself, one day you'll be telling your own success story. I believe in you, and I'm here to support you every step of the way.